You mentioned a Great Dane, but you did not mention the slobber of a Great Dane. Hey y'all, welcome back to another day of Vlogmas. Let me see if I can get a better angle. Okay, it's about the same, but whatever. So today, I think this will be going up on day 13 of Vlogmas, and we're doing another book review. I mean, you're probably like, Obi, so many book reviews. I'm like, yeah, I gotta commute. I need to listen to audiobooks on said commute. That's just what I do. So this book I actually read while I was moving, or listened to while I was moving. It got me through a lot of it. That was also how I was able to tell I had been walking pretty much nonstop for 5 hours, because I'm like, okay, I started it around the time I did the first round trip of dropping stuff off, and 5 hours later I finally stopped and I looked at it and I was like, ooh, whoa. Yeah. So what book are we talking about? We're talking about The Holiday Trap. The book is by Rowan Parrish. I apologize if I mispronounced the name. And this is The Holiday, which I've actually never seen that movie, but you know, the one with Kate Winslet, Jude Law, Cameron Diaz, and Jack Black. Yeah, take that, but make it queer and just keep it in the United States between Maine and New Orleans. And it is a really fun book. I give it a 4 out of 5 stars. That's the number combination I was thinking of. No, it was really good. And I will warn you guys now, there are a few open door spicy scenes. Not a lot, but there are a few, and it happens with both couples. And in this case, like I said, it's queer. You've got a man-loving man relationship. I think both of them are gay. And then you've got a woman-loving woman, and I think both of them are lesbians, but one of them could be just queer or bi or pan, or we don't really get a good read. I'm not saying not a good read, but she never explains. Everybody else, it was pretty explicitly about saying okay, what flavor of the flag they are. So this is actually not my first queer holiday romance book that is based off of existing intellectual property. I also read Written in the Stars a while back. I never reviewed it, which is a woman-loving woman book that is based off of Pride and Prejudice that also has a good number of Christmas scenes in it. And in this case, specifically with the Written in the Stars and the lesbian relationship in The Holiday Trap, I find it very similar in some of the dynamics that they talk about, specifically with the mothers really wanting the best for their child, with one of the couples. With the other couple, you've got a mother that is just irresponsible, but you've also then got a mother who is well-meaning but also messes up and tries to think of what's best for them when really it's not, and can be very overbearing. And I found that interesting, that seems to be a not uncommon trope, or it's shown up twice already now in books that I've listened to. And I just think that's kind of interesting. You see it all the time in other books too, but it was interesting that 2 for 2 comment that the mothers mean well, but they struggle to connect with their child. Also, in both of those cases, it's more the siblings. The parent is fine, the sibling is more, the siblings are much more the problem in causing issues with the dynamics, because they're it's not that they're lesbian specifically, it's the fact that also in all of it they end up being much more of the outgoing child that wants to get out of the house, and the siblings are much more, no, you gotta stay the path. We're going to go into the premise, and also all of this we will be discussing spoilers. That just happens in this. But so we've got Greta, who is in Owl Island, Maine, and it's a very Christmassy, not Christmassy town, but they have this big Christmas festival, and she loves it even though she's Jewish, and it's just kind of a fun holiday tradition. Well, one of the traditions, and it's the one that she does hate, is the auctioning for a date, and her sister and mother sign her up for it. So also in all of this, Greta is one of 5 girls. She has two older sisters. She is a twin, and then they have a younger sister. And the oldest sister, whose name is Sadie, is very domineering, I think is one good word. And the sister, Sadie, is the one that is really the antagonist, because she's very upset at Greta just at any point when she does not follow exactly what Sadie did also. Like, she's like, Sadie, it's like, I did this, so therefore you guys all have to do the same thing. And those with like older siblings can attest that sometimes they will be like that. Usually they grow out of it. Sadie seems to not have grown up out of it and has quite the victim mentality. Like, the mother also does, and the father enables all of it. And by enables, I mean he stays quiet, so he does not speak up. He'll give that sympathetic look but doesn't actually help. The mother is also like that typical, oh, I must have then done everything incorrect. Y'all know the type. That happens. She's just like, I can't deal with this anymore. She's complaining to her friend Ramona, who was her roommate in college, like her freshman year of college. And Ramona's like, you need to get boundaries. Y'all are all way too enmeshed. And like, I can understand that too, because like when I'm back home, I'm very enmeshed with my parents. Like, that just is how things naturally happen. Then you've got Truman, who he was about to go visit his friend, or not his friend. He was about to go visit his boyfriend. And when he stops by the house, he realizes that said boyfriend, Guy has a partner and a child. He's like, oh, I was the side piece. I met his friends. His friends are letting him like cheat on his partner. And they just gave me a sympathetic look, which, God, I hate it in those books when, yeah, the cheaters get away, kind of like the friends know, but the cheater just lets it happen, or they just let the cheating happen. Like, yeah. He is also really upset. He had no plans for the holidays, nothing to do. He kind of let his life revolve around Guy. And Ramona, the same Ramona that was Greta's friend, is also one of Truman's friends. She's like, you also need to actually speak up and do what you want to do, not just go with the flow. In all of this, she realized that like Ramona offers to have them swap, because both of them are like, oh, we can't get away with like Greta. She's got her plans. And with Truman, he's got Horace, who is a Great Dane. Who I'm like, you mentioned a Great Dane, but you did not mention the slobber of a Great Dane. I have dealt with Great Danes before. One of my like cousins has a Great Dane, and oh my god, the slobber on those, oh, yeah, insane. So they do decide to swap places. Truman, who is from New Orleans, grew up in Metairie, goes to Maine in December. Oh, like that's rough. One of my siblings lives in New Orleans. I've been there multiple times, a lot of times. And yeah, knowing that sister, they don't handle the like winters well. It was crazy this year when it snowed. My sibling hated it, but I think was also kind of surprised that it was so cold. It's hard to explain to like a very small child about like snow. And Greta goes down to New Orleans from Owl Island, and like she's staying in one of the row houses, so I can like kind of picture where they are. They're not in the Garden District. Guy actually lived in the Garden District, but they do not. This is the neighborhood they lived in. So we kind of have these like dual POVs, or like dual timelines really, that do not really interact much. With both of these timelines, within the first like couple of minutes really of them being in their new state, they fall in love. And so I'm going to kind of talk about each of these stories separately, even though in the actual book they go back and forth. So we're going to start off with Greta's story, which is Greta and Karis. That is the woman that she meets and falls in love with, because she's just taking horse out on a walk, and she sees this miniature horse actually, and she's like, what the heck? She sees that miniature horse, and then later on this walk, she also meets a woman who has this beautiful garden, who is this like older woman, and Greta gives her so many compliments of like, oh, this garden's amazing, and they kind of become friends. Like this older woman is a painter who's also part of a garden club of like these older people in New Orleans, and they kind of also adopt Greta as one of their own. And so she's really already starting to like, within a few minutes, she's building a community. Like after she has talked with the older woman, she's wandering around, and that's when she meets Karis, who has the like miniature like horse as a pet. The horse's name is Cupcake. And Like Greta's immediately like, oh my gosh, you're so cool. And they end up chatting, and Karis is a graduate student. We don't know what university. There are multiple universities in New Orleans, but if I had to bet, I'd probably assume it was going to be Tulane University. The other option I could see is maybe Loyola. Also, it's right next to Tulane. Like, she is in grad school for math, and also her trick is she works at Jackson Square, and she'll do like math problems and get money from that, because she kind of banks on people thinking, oh, she can't do all these calculations in her head, but she can. And she is very involved in like the queer scene of like New Orleans. She lives with some of her friends, one being like a Black trans woman, and like they also immediately adopt like Greta. And they're all kind of an eccentric bunch, because Karis's 2 roommates, they have honeybees, they make king cakes, and they're like, it's king cake season. And when I first heard that, I'm like, king cake season is after January 6th, up until Ash Wednesday. This book is taking place in early December. That's not king cake season. But then they explained it was them cooking and baking king cakes and practicing, and I'm like, okay. This is like how it's Nutcracker season in October, even though Nutcracker's a December performance. I will allow it. Again, like I said, my sibling has lived in New Orleans for many, 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 many years at this point, so I am familiar with a decent number of things New Orleans based. I guess to the point where, like, again, the sibling has lived in New Orleans for so long. I had not done Bourbon Street or the French Quarter until recently, until like not my most recent trip, but the trip before that. So I was like, because we were staying on Canal Street, I was not staying with the sibling, so yeah, that's why. Oh, and I was finally old enough to actually drink. In this whole thing, like, while Greta is in New Orleans, she's really trying to figure out who she is, because in this whole thing, she has always been part of this big family. There is like 7 of them, and also Greta's a twin, which that just like adds an extra layer, because twins are always lumped together. That's always an argument with like, oh no, twins should be seen as individual people, not as like a pairing. Sometimes you get those sets of twins that like to be a pairing. Like I've got aunts that are a set of twins, and they've done their own things. They're definitely still the twins. My grandfather and his twin brother were the twins. Like, it was the twins plus their younger brother. Like, and that was just kind of the dynamic that was going on. And like, she wants to have her own identity and want her own things, but because like there were so many of them, they always just had to go for like what was good enough and compromise a lot, and weren't able to voice if they were like sad to have to compromise. Like, how it was kind of this, how dare you be upset? Would you rather none of us have this thing, or we can at least have something? That was kind of some of the dynamic Lady really pushed. It's reasonable to be upset. You can be honest about like, yeah, I get that I have to like share XYZ, but I can also be voice that as like, it kind of can suck. Also in all of this, and this is a really interesting conversation that we have initially when Greta is talking to her gardening friends. The woman was talking about how like her and her mother were very different, but one of the things that helped was when they could find similarities. And Greta was then trying to find similarities with her mother. She does not figure them out until after Karis has to call her out for being like, hey, I told you I don't want you doing XYZ, and you still do it anyway. And Karis was like upset because, for example, Greta cleaned up after this massive party while everybody else was hungover. She's like, oh, I'll just clean it up. And Karis had been like, no, I want to be alone, don't come over, don't do any of these things. Greta's still thinking, oh, I know better, I can help. And she realizes this is the same exact thing that her mother does. That's when she realizes like, okay, yeah, part of the problem is her mother is not listening, but she's also really trying to take care of her loved ones. That's something that like Greta starts to appreciate about her mother. Once Greta realizes, okay, I do want to stay in New Orleans, she does go back home to Maine briefly to tell like the rest of the family in person, to be like, hey, I want to be my own person. I don't want to just have to compromise at all times. Sadie takes this as a complete affront. Her twin, Abigail, is hurt. And again, I don't blame her. It's one of those things where Abigail had also been hurt by Greta when Greta decided to go to University of Maine at Portland instead of one of the closer University of Maines, and like separating the two of them. yeah, she wanted to spend more time with her twin, but Greta was like, I need to figure out who I am. The youngest sister, who was also looking to get away, was really happy because that also helped push Greta in many of the cases of like having her, like the younger sister, be like, yeah, I'm going to California over the summer. That's why I'm trying to spend as much time with the family right now. And also with the siblings, I mentioned we have some of that in like contact with Sadie being very pushy. I wish, again, we did have more of those conversations with the twin, because like in that search of finding an identity, and I think that would have been a really good conversation piece to have. We don't really talk about her. She's kind of just like left on her own. Like we keep on forgetting that Greta is actually a twin and probably seen even less as an individual person than like the other sisters were. But yeah, Greta really enjoys the eccentricities of New Orleans, and I can't blame her. Although like she gets it in a kind of a reasonable period of time. I don't know how she'd feel about like either Mardi Gras season or hurricane season. Both of those would be rough. Also in all this, I do appreciate the fact that her mother does come around. Like in the end, her mother is very understanding about like, hey, you need to figure out your own thing. The parents had moved from Cleveland to Maine because they did not want to be part of the family business, which was just running like a restaurant. And I think they realized, oh, some of our kids are going to do the same thing. I also like wondering, because the mother wants all of her children nearby, if like part of that is because the family is the only Jewish family on an island, and so like part of their identity is like wrapped up as a family also in being kind of other from everybody else, like something like a key marker of other. And like while like the Jewish faith does not play a big part, they are not even super religious, I think that as part of the identity may also like play a role in like that difference between being like the only Jewish family on the island possibly means that they like the parents want them to be closer together. Now with Truman, this one in some ways felt like Truman didn't have to change a lot. Like he very quickly figured out how to speak up for himself, as I noticed, because like Truman falls in love with Ash, who Ash is actually one of Greta's friends, who is like, he's a gay man who runs the flower shop. And like he also, as we learn, is taking care of his mother, who's got early dementia. His mother is kind of like a cornerstone of the community. Everybody knows her, everybody loves her. And so in this case, like they're all wanting to help, but like Ash is kind of unsure about how to ask for help in many of these cases. Like Truman, the big thing is like he goes for the path of least resistance. Like, so he just kind of like stayed in New Orleans. He took the job that was like a work from home. He did accounting because he enjoyed his accounting class. Like that's really it. And it's one of those things where his parents have said, oh, he's not our artistic one. So like, oh, well, at least we have somebody who's more stable. But like Truman is really artistic, actually. He's really into bullet journaling, and he's very, very creative. Like in this whole thing, Ash is worried about losing the flower shop because it doesn't have great business. He's trying to prevent this one developer from taking it over. So Truman is just like rattling off ideas left, right, and center to try and help like drum up any sort of business ideas, and he does a lot. And because like Ash is very apprehensive about asking for help, he's like, no, we've got some ideas. Like, and the thing is, people want to help. Like when they come up with the idea of like, okay, having these glass bottles with like little stamps or stickers on it, they then have like wildflowers that you can later hang and like as dried flowers. It's like, okay, we just ask the community for the like jars. And with the printer, well, Greta's got a printer. We can get like the paper for stamps, and you can do it yourself. Or stickers. I keep on saying stamps. But the stickers. Truman, pretty well adjusted, honestly. Like he doesn't think he's well adjusted, but comparatively, he is much more open than Ash. Like Ash is the one that really was having like trouble trying to like voice his feelings and kind of come to like understanding of like, yes, asking for help. Like Truman was like, yeah, I want to move here. I like this place. I feel like a community here, and I won't move here just for Ash. Like, Ash, I don't want you to think that. Because then Ash was like, I don't want you to move here just for me, and I'm worried that I don't have enough like bandwidth, which is very reasonable. Anybody who has watched somebody be a caretaker for someone with dementia knows how hard it is. Periodically throughout the their interactions with people in the town, they're always asking about Ash's mother, telling him, hey, I can help if you want. And they realized that like Truman figures out a really great solution of being like, hey, there are two people that are like young people that live on the island that probably can't afford like expensive rent. Why don't they move in with your mother and help take care of her? As like they get a really reduced rent and they can help take some of that burden off. And that really does help, because like, yeah, they don't really have many fights, because also in all of this, Truman, the big thing that he's also doing in all of this is trying to figure out whether or not the author of one of his favorite book series, which is the like high fantasy book series, is from Owl Island or lived on Owl Island. Because the first night after getting wine drunk, like berry wine drunk, I'd initially planned on having glasses of wine with me. However, I just got a hepatitis B vaccine and I want to be easy on my liver right now. But he got very wine drunk and realized in Greta's apartment, he's like, some of these things seem very similar to what I read in the books. And then as things go along, they go to this cave, and that's where they have this really cute romantic scene. That's when he realizes, oh yeah, this cave is exactly like what it was in the books. And through also actually his mother, they learn the name of this author who was like incredibly secretive, and are able to actually find her. And in the epilogue, they go and meet her, and he tries so hard, Truman tries so desperately to have her come to a book talk, and she's like, no. I'm a recluse. I've always been a recluse. I do not want to deal with fans. This is already crazy enough. And she has like the greatest thing of like, yes, you may know where I live, but I also know where you live because you live in my old apartment, which I found very funny. And I thought that was like overall like a good story. Like it was kind of almost like in some ways like a palate cleanser from like Greta's story. I mean, there's still a lot of heavy topics, and like when Truman does talk to his mother, it's like really sad that he gets overlooked by his family so much. They didn't even realize he was gone until his sister had shown up at the house being like, where's Truman? And Greta having to be like, he and I swapped houses. Like the mother had no idea, and it's like, that's just kind of sad that everybody kind of overlooks you because you're the more stable, steady one. But like Truman is like thriving truly in Owl Island. Like he needed that like smaller community. He needed people to rely on him in some ways. Like that's something he needed, and people that would appreciate his talents, because he is very creative. Like I said, with the bullet journaling, he was coming up with planner ideas even, and just having that like smaller community, he's able to have a much larger impact than he would if he was in New Orleans. And I did find that very nice. I think this was like a good book to like listen to. Like I said, I do wish, kind of with Truman's story, I wish there would have been more involving that ex, like having that ex specifically come up at some point. Like especially because Greta, before she runs to Maine quickly to tell her family, she goes to Guy and says, like tells the husband of Guy of like, hey, Guy's been cheating on you. I really think that would have been an interesting plot point to have like the husband partner of Guy reach out to Truman and them having that conversation. I think that would have been good. I think like that would have been a nice like end to tie up. I understand with things like the Sadie plotline was never really tied up, but like also life isn't always like that. I think though for the partner and Truman, I think it would have been a good thing to tie up of like, hey, this happened. Telling Guy's partner that the friends know, like that, definitely, because if those friends let the cheating happen, oh man, they let the cheater get away. Not okay whatsoever. Like I said, I don't have many critiques, and it was a good book to listen to while I was moving. It kept me like motivated, and like because I had been to New Orleans so many times, I could picture a good chunk of it, which was very fun. And I was like texting my siblings being like, I'm reading a book that takes place in New Orleans, blah, blah, blah. Like, because also the character actually like went to Tulane, which was like, oh yeah, that's where my sibling graduated from like with their undergrad. Yeah, I would say read it. It's a fun one. And like, especially like just everybody to read it. I think reading LGBTQ plus books is really important. You get different perspectives. And like I said, there are not a lot of like spicy scenes. There's like maybe 4 or 5 total in the entire book. And the book is like, got 12 hours, I think. So yeah. And I do hope you guys liked this like review. This is a lot less chaotic than the last one I did. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.